It's time now for Back Pages Tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are the Guardian's sports writer Jonathan Liew and the Telegraph's chief football correspondent Jason Burke. Big welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages before we have a chat. Let's start with the Telegraph, where they lead with Vera Eza's move to Arsenal. Eza's Arsenal debut on hold, they say, and they also focus on that result for Palace, a 1-0 win in the Conference League, where they say Mateta makes it better. Inside of the Telegraph, the focus is on who Spurs will target next after missing out on Eza. Tottenham move on from snubs to target Akliouche. And they have news from Anfield. Liverpool hit by Frimpong injury blow. And in the Times, they also leave with Eza. Not so Eza easy for Palace, they say, and they focus on Tottenham as well. Spurs targets Argentine Paz after latest rejection, plus a revealing interview from Aston Villa's Morgan Rogers, who tells Charlotte Dunker lower leagues shaped me and that he's not happy at the club. And in The Guardian, let's have a look at this. Ready for impact, they say. World Cup, a landmark for women's game. They also focus on Kulusevski, who's out until January, of course. Palace off and running in Europe as well, despite stay-away Eza. And in tennis, Raducanu lined up to hit tough opposition in the US Open draw, which is live on Sky Sports. Yeah, lots to come on the back pages. But before we get to our guests and the back pages, let's hear from the Crystal Palace manager, Oliver Glasner, who has been speaking about Eza following that win in their Conference League playoff first leg.
Can I just ask you about the absence tonight of Eze?
I have to apologise to all of you because the first time I didn't tell you the truth yesterday. So I expected him to play. Today he called me that he doesn't feel well and can't play in the evening, and that's why he didn't play.
Did he say he didn't feel well physically or mentally?
Overall.
Was it to do with his frame of mind, with everything that's going on?
We have to ask him.
You can't ask him, obviously.
Maybe in a few days. But
So do you think he'll play for Crystal Palace again?
no.
What do you know about the latest with him? It looks like it's going to be Arsenal, right?
Again, I'm responsible for Crystal Palace, and I think he won't play for us again. So I have to prepare the team for Nottingham and for the second leg against Fredrikstad. And I'm planning without Everechi.
Steve Parish has just said the king is dead, long live the king, referring to Eze leaving the club. So if the chairman's saying it, then I guess it's fairly well confirmed.
Again, my job is to prepare the team. I'm not involved in the transfer stuff that's going on. I just know that he was not available today, and it's for us now. And we are very, very late. It's 10 days to go to find the right replacements. So again, I think we could have done much better than we did. It's no criticism, it's just telling facts. This group of players is really working so hard in every single game. Today we had 17 on-field players available, one from the academy, 2 players we already told that they should leave the club, so that means we have 14. Yeah, and having 6 games from 10th of August until the 31st. And this group, I know we can rely on them. I trust them completely, but it's really, let's say, not the best way you should start into the season. With the results, yes, of course. 3rd game, no defeat. That's all good, but I think we are below the edge.
Yeah, so clearly there, Oliver Glasner disappointed with the situation that his squad is in. So let's start with Jason's paper, The Telegraph, and, well, many of the back pages, in fact, leading with the fact that Eza is leaving Crystal Palace. It looks like Arsenal is the most likely target for him. Jason, Glasner there didn't confirm whether Eza pulling out was mental or physical, but what have you made of all this? What have you made of the way the player has reacted by pulling himself out of this Conference League game?
I mean, to be fair to him, he's probably in a fairly invidious situation today in that clearly Crystal Palace wanted him to play this evening, but he's got a huge transfer to negotiate and to deal with and to go through in the next 24 hours. And it's very difficult for them to sort of ask him to play in a game which will clearly be his last game, and if he gets injured, put in jeopardy that move. But at the same time, I think up until this point, he's been fairly faultless in his behaviour, contrasted to some other players and so on this summer. However, to sort of turn around and say, I'm not feeling well, it's a little bit disappointing that that's the reason it's been put forward. Why couldn't they just simply say he's withdrawn from the game because he's negotiating his move to Arsenal, which everyone knows is exactly what's happening? And I think that would be fair enough. And sometimes with transfers, we dance around in the language we use, and managers are put in quite difficult situations. They're talking like Oliver Glasner just has done, without being able to reveal the full facts. And I just pray for the day when we had much more transparency in how these moves come about, just for the fans' sake, really, because obviously they've been left in the dark. And obviously, up until the point that the Crystal Palace squad turned up this evening, we weren't 100% sure whether Eberechi Eze was going to be part of it or not part of it. So I think the supporters get a little bit shortchanged in that regard. His overall conduct, though, I think has been very, very good. I mean, he's conducted himself extremely well. I don't blame him at all for accepting this offer from Arsenal when it looked like he was going to go to Tottenham Hotspur. He made clear all along that his preference was to go to Arsenal, and they've come in and gazumped the deal. But I think Glasner in particular has been left, and you can see the frustration when he's talking, been left in a very difficult situation, partly because of the way transfers are negotiated, the way the business is carried on.
Jonathan, do you understand why Glasner himself is so frustrated?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, he looked to me, and he has looked, I think, for quite a lot of the last few weeks, like a coach who wants to be able to say a lot more than he can, and I think he will at some point. I think he's essentially a coach who's on the verge of expressing quite extreme displeasure with the way that certainly Palace have conducted their transfer business this summer, and I guess a lot of factors that are out of his control, like Eze leaving, like the decision to demote them from the Europa League, which is certainly not his fault. And I think if you look at where this has left him already 2 games into the season, with a player that he may have expected to leave at some point, but to leave him without a key player in his squad, without a meaningful replacement, and no prospect of getting one certainly immediately, I think he's right to sound the alarm bells. For all the last few months have been, incredible for Palace fans. The last few weeks, I think, have brought them down to earth quite severely.
Yeah, the Times point out the fact that the side laboured to victory on their European debut in this Conference League game. Is that how you saw it, Jason? Did they look like they missed him?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they were definitely affected by his absence. I mean, there had to be, really. The team was going to be set up with him being a key part of it in a game which was, the big European night for Crystal Palace. And the mood music yesterday was that he wanted to be part of that. He actually wanted his farewell for Palace to play in a European game for them. But clearly he's been told in the meantime that that's not the right thing to do, or he suddenly felt very ill. So I think it's a real shame that it's happened like this for Crystal Palace. And, for taking a 1-0 lead, but that's, they would have hoped to have had a much more convincing victory this evening. They're going to go home and play on an artificial pitch in the second leg. It means an awful lot for them to get through this playoff, to get into the Conference League. Obviously, they wanted to be in the UEFA Europa League, but they're going to be in the Conference League. It means an awful lot to Crystal Palace to get there. I think the original plan for Palace was to try and hope that they could hold off to get Eze through both these games, and also Mark Gahey. Don't forget, Mark Gahey could well go by the end of this window, so they could be losing him as well to Liverpool. I think that's still very much a possibility that could happen. So it's a very, very difficult week ahead for Palace, trying to sort of appease everyone around this transfer, but also trying to bring in the replacements and strengthen that squad, because Glasner is right. And as Jonathan says, he's in a very difficult situation with having taken Palace to incredible heights and also winning the Community Shield already this season. And he just hasn't quite had the backing that he probably expected, and I'm sure to a degree was promised earlier on in the summer.
Yeah, Jason, you mentioned that obviously 2 key players could be gone in Eze and Gay, but they've still got Jean-Philippe Mateta, who got that first European goal tonight. In the back of The Guardian, they do feature the story as well and headline it Mateta Magic. But, Jonathan, we know that this is what Crystal Palace do. This is their model, no? They get good players in from a young age, possibly coming through their academy, train them up, get them very, very good, and they attract the likes of so-called bigger clubs and sell them on. This is just how it is, isn't it?
And yeah, this is what they've done very successfully, not just with Eze, but with Adam Wharton, with Gahey, with Michael Olise, and this is how clubs of Palace's size essentially have to operate. They may have a windfall now, but they can't go out and buy a superstar. That is not something that Palace can do. That there is the the player of Eze's capability does not exist in the market for them. So they have to do essentially what all clubs of their size have to do is make the next one, find them, scout them, coach them up, give them game time, and then hopefully hope that they develop into not just a sellable asset, but a player who can do a job for them in the Premier League. That's the, I mean the other part of this, and I guess why Glasner's position is so tough is that you're not just losing a player in Eze who did incredible things for Palace. He made the players around him better as well. He made Mateta better. He made Daniel Munoz better. He made Ismail Assar better. And it's not just replacing what he does on the pitch, but almost the character and the personality and the uplift he gave to that Palace side. That's what's really going to sting for them.
Okay, let's just shift our attentions then to we're still almost talking in the region of Eze, but we're talking here hijacks in football. The Telegraph have gone big on this because that's the word that's been used constantly throughout the back pages over the last couple of days. The fact that Arsenal swooped in at the last minute to take Eze when Spurs were clearly interested. The Telegraph say that Arsenal have pulled off one of the biggest heists in football. And they've listed a number of what they call transfer hijackings in history. Just a couple of examples for you. You might remember Willian to Chelsea, even after he did his medical at Spurs, apparently told Daniel Levy that I don't want to join the club, I want to go to Chelsea. That was in 2013. How about Dimitar Berbatov to Manchester United when it looked like Manchester City were going to get his signature? That was in 2008. Jonathan, shall I start with you? What are some of your best hijackings, maybe even the couple that I've mentioned there?
Yeah, man, it's great ones. You know, Tottenham do seem to be on the receiving end of this quite a lot. Emmanuel Petit, I remember, was I think Alan Sugar got him a taxi to his house, and then Petit then went and took the same taxi to Arsene Wenger's house to sign for Arsenal. That was a good one. This has been going on for decades, right? You know, you get Roy Keane getting a call from Alex Ferguson just as he was on the verge of signing for Blackburn Rovers in 1993. Alfredo Di Stefano, when he was moving from Millonarios to Europe in, I think it was 1950, 1953, something like that. And Barcelona, basically, they have an agreement with River Plate for his signature, and Real Madrid come and hijack the deal at the last minute. There's a huge amount of confusion over who owns him, and how that is going to be resolved. And it goes to a tribunal, and it ends up being basically one of the founding stones in one of the great rivalries in world football.
Just before we go to the break, Jason, how about you?
I'd be the Willian transfer, and that was remarkable. I worked on that one quite a lot, and I'm told actually there is a picture in existence, a photo in existence taken on a camera phone of Willian just about to sign his Tottenham contract. The paper was actually in front of him, so was the pen, and then it just stopped and he left the room, and that was the last I saw of him, basically. And I remember at the time asking somebody at Tottenham, did you not think about taking any legal action about that? And they just shrugged his shoulders and said, what can we do? And that's football.
Brilliant. Great article there from Tom Morgan in The Telegraph. Got us all talking here in the Sky Sports News office as well. OK, gents, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in The Times. Spurs target Argentine Paz after latest rejection. Plus, Charlotte Dunker's interview with the PFA Young Player of the Year, Morgan Rogers, who discusses that he's happy at the club and how the lower leagues have shaped him. Stay with us. Jonathan Liew and the Telegraph's chief football correspondent, Jason Burt. Now, we've already discussed Arsenal hijacking Tottenham's move for Eze. And from a Spurs point of view, the fans must be thinking, well, OK, what next? Are there any replacements available? One of the potential targets could be Morgan Rogers. He's spoken to Charlotte Dunker from The Times recently, but he said he's happy at Villa. Jonathan, how do you feel about this as a potential replacement, alternative to Eze? Could it work?
Yeah, well, I think Spurs would love to get Morgan Rogers in. I think Spurs fans would love to get that in. I feel like that's a deal that would be incredibly hard to do in the next sort of 9 or 10 days. I don't think Aston Villa are remotely interested in letting him go. It would take probably a fee outstripping the Eze fee to even get them near to the table. There is obviously a huge amount of pressure on Daniel Levy and Spurs to do some business in the next 9 or 10 days, and I think selling clubs are going to know that. They know that they are going to be slightly lovelorn. You know, they're going to be hurting a little bit, and for selling clubs, it might well be an opportunity to induce them into one or two rash decisions.
There's another potential target, Jason, in someone from Monaco, in Akliouche. Know much about him? Is he a possibility?
Yeah, I think that's much more of a possibility than Morgan Rogers. I think Morgan Rogers would probably be the last player that Aston Villa would sell. I think Arsenal looked at Rogers this summer and walked away quite quickly because they weren't giving any encouragement whatsoever from Aston Villa. But yes, this is definitely one that could happen. I think Monaco would like to keep him. But I think Monaco are a selling club. So I think if the right offer is put down on the table, I think they would accept. I think the coach has already said, the director of football has already said there's a possibility that he would leave. So that is one that Tottenham could get done. I mean, they actually do have to do at least two. So they really have to get their skates on here. I think Savinho is one they'll try and get as well. I think they'll try and probably do them both if they can, because they were after Savinho and Eze. It wasn't one or the other. So I think there's an awful lot that needs to happen very quickly at Tottenham to try and get themselves back on track, but also to appease the support. So I think this is one which I would definitely look out for as a strong possibility. I think as I say, Monaco would be willing to trade, whereas Aston Villa certainly would not.
Yeah, get their skates on, Jonathan. But how do they do that? How do they turn this window around for them? It's been particularly unsuccessful. We remember that they went after a Gibbs White. That didn't turn out very well. In the Times, they've also mentioned another potential target in the Argentinian Paz. How do they turn this around, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very hard. And I think it does require a certain amount of holding the line and holding the faith a little bit. That there are links with Nico Paz at Como. He's a great player. He's a great young player full of potential, but it is mostly that at this stage. I think he's 20 years old. Tyler Dibbling, likewise. These are not names that are going to be able to plug in and play and you know, and be a known quantity. And I think in the way that Eze was, I think Spurs almost need to kind of park that ambition a little bit and accept that they're not going to get a player of Eze's quality or experience or proven ability at this stage in the window. You know, there's been some talk of Xavi Simons, which again seems pretty remote. I think they do almost need to kind of hold the faith a little bit, because they have a young squad. They have a young, improving squad. They've got a decent manager. They've started the season well enough. And I think that there are plenty of examples in the past of big money signings either not working out or not settling. There were no guarantees that Eze was going to work. And I think that the fact that they still have 9 or 10 days to do some business and, you know, I don't want to say salvage the window, but almost kind of improve the mood of the place a little bit, because Spurs fans that I know are kind of at rock bottom right now.
Yeah, Spurs fans are at rock bottom. How must Thomas Frank be feeling, Jason?
I think Tottenham looked out with Thomas Frank. He's the most pragmatic of pragmatic managers. I think he will definitely try and put on the bravest of faces, but also, more importantly, find a solution. You know, he wanted this Tottenham job, so he will try damnedest to make it work. And we've seen that already with him in the way he's been very sort of eager to change formations and go from game to game in a way that actually in modern day football is quite unusual. Nowadays we have coaches talking about this is my way of playing and that's the way I play. And Thomas Frank is the opposite of that. He will look at the opposition and he will find a solution. In some ways, that's always been like a kind of a smaller club mentality, but actually it's not. It's just the way to win football matches, and that's all he's bothered about. So I think he will find solutions. They have got a good squad. Mohamed Kudus has been a great signing for them and will be a very important player for them. But I think the frustration has been the obvious fact that they need a couple more players in the forward areas just to make that good squad into a squad with a huge amount of potential. He could go quite a long way under a very capable manager. But I think Tottenham are in a very lucky place to have him in charge at this moment in time, because I think he will definitely find the solutions. Even if they don't sign somebody in the rest of this window, I think they'll be okay. But it's whether okay is good enough.
Yeah, will it be good enough considering they've got Champions League football? And it's not just a number 10 they're looking for. They're also looking for a winger. OK, let's move on to another club that will be playing in the Champions League, the champions of the Premier League at the moment, Liverpool. And they've been hit with a little bit of an injury blow, haven't they? Jeremy Frimpong out until after the September international break, as being reported here in the Telegraph. Jonathan, how big of a blow is this for a squad like Liverpool that have, you would hope, a number of reinforcements, have competition for places? How big is this injury blow?
Yeah, it's not great timing, I guess. Just as he was integrating into the side, and given the fact that Liverpool's two fixtures before the international break are away at Newcastle and then Arsenal. These are two huge games as they try and, I think, assemble their title defence. Added in the fact that Conor Bradley is just returning to training. Joe Gomez not available, and I think what Slot was saying today about potential replacements in the right back area. I don't think you go back into the market. I don't think it's a smart move to go back into the market for a player who's basically going to be out for 3 weeks. But the contingency solutions that he mentioned, he said Wataru Endo could play. He mentioned Szoboszlai, which I think is an indication of how he sees that position. Szoboszlai at right back would be an incredibly attacking option for Liverpool. I think that is of a piece with how he saw Frimpong fitting in. You saw Kerkez and Frimpong against Bournemouth take up incredibly advanced positions, which just kind of shows how pivotal that position is in the way Slot's trying to assemble his Liverpool side this season.
It'd be interesting to see who might have to step up then with Frimpong out for a couple of weeks there. Let's turn our attentions now to Chelsea. In the back of the Sun, they've headlined it The Ends, because Enzo Maresca has been talking about the fact that Jackson and Nkunku could go. In fact, he says it will be better if they did leave, Jason. I'm almost surprised by how transparent and honest he's being.
Well, I think that's because they haven't struck the deals they want to do to get them out. Basically, I think both those players, as you say, can leave. And I think Nkunku has been going on for quite some time. We think it's going to be RB Leipzig, but that deal still hasn't been struck yet. And obviously, Xavi Simons going in the opposite direction is what Chelsea want to do. And I'm surprised that's not moved on. I think with Jackson, I think they've been pricing him far too high in the market. I think they've been hoping that, for example, Newcastle would sell Alexander Isak to Liverpool and then would buy Jackson, who they've been pricing, at around 60 to 80 million pounds, and they bought him for 30. To be fair to Chelsea, they do sell very, very well. They've done that extremely well in the last year or two. They're an incredible trading club at the moment. And I'm slightly uncomfortable with the way they're almost flipping players. They have them come in for a year or two, move them on. And to be talking so openly about them going now, it almost becomes, the trading of players becomes quite a big, upfront thing for them. But he's been quite honest. I don't think either of those players have a future at Chelsea. So I think he's just sort of saying to the market, let's get a deal done.
Yeah, Jason, again, something that we're going to be keeping an eye on here. Do you know what? We've come to time. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you, Jonathan Liu, as well, for your time on Back Pages tonight. Now, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can see Back Pages tonight at hour, and the show is also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can join us again on Friday nights, where our guests will be David Ornstein and Mark Ogden.